So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Qais. And Qais will be speaking to us about the workplace, as we have already talked a little bit about the education. So Qais, it's up, the floor is over to you to talk about your experience of navigating the workplace.
Thank you, Baron, and thank you for everyone to join us today. So yes, I will be talking about the topic dealing with the workplace and the boss. While it's not that quite common to talk about the workplace in the deaf and hard of hearing community, it comes to that we has to work harder, that people who are ordered to succeed, keeping up with the information, and even have to organize our own support, for example, booking our communication support. So the challenges of being deaf and hard of hearing in the workplace. As you can see, there are the key words that brings up in the workplace. It brings up with the feelings of anxiety and nervous. Some of the thoughts that come up with, how do I tell my employer that I'm a deaf and hard of hearing? How will I able to cope with the meetings? Will I get enough support from the colleagues or my boss? I won't able to catch up with all the conversation. These questions highlight some of the challenges we face being a hard of deaf and hard of hearing in the workplace. It can be very tiring and overwhelming at the same time. So I will be sharing my experience from my my work. So of course, the first thing I share when it comes to workplace, I share my awareness. For example, I would have to lip read on, people and, such as the background noise. If I'm finding a difficulty with the background noise, I would obviously tell with my manager, colleague, that could we make the situation easier in terms of background noise? The second thing is that I use my own accessibility, such as using a mini mic. So I would be told, if I'm finding it difficult to hear other people's voices, I would able to use the mini mic without hesitation. Missing out of the office chit chat. So often as in the hard of hearing community, we tend to find it very difficult to catch up with all the conversation, and we feel very isolated. And so sometimes we feel like we won't able to catch up. So it's okay to ask them to repeat or to catch up and to ask them what to talk about the topic. Dealing with the difficult boss and manager. When it comes to workplace, it can be quite difficult to deal with such a type of people. For example, if you can tell with the behavior and the interaction, but it's quite difficult to raise an issue because you don't want to make it a big issue. So this is why I'm telling you how to do this step by step. The first thing is to come to the action. The first thing when it comes to workplace, start taking as ready, set, go. Think about your talent and your skills first of all, and show what you can do. This will improve to employer that you are really keen into work impression in the workplace, and you have to make a good impression. The second thing is the connection. So you would have to, in the deafness in the workplace, leads to communication barriers and can create a constant battle for them to understand everyone around them. Once you're hired, that people may become discouraged because people around you do not know how to communicate with deaf and hard of hearing people. Deaf people may feel isolated and keep themselves while at work. Many co-workers have never worked with deaf people before, so they may feel awkward and unsure how to approach to deaf people. That is why start to make a connection between your colleagues and our boss. Focus on developing one or two friendship with your colleagues. Meet with your boss regularly to ensure that there are no misunderstandings and you're fully informed about what is going on. Get them to know about you as a person, your personality and your passion. That way, that could help them to understand about your identity. Communication is the key. Clear communication is the key to having a successful relationship between the employees and the deaf workers. third thing is accessibility. The deafness in the workplace, when it comes to accessibility in the workplace, do not be afraid for the support. Under no circumstances, it is our right to ask for our employees for support. Often in the workplace, miscommunication happens all the time, in which in our lives, which is the last thing we as a deaf, hard of hearing, want to experience that way. We may feel hesitate to ask them to repeat and understood what they said. During the team meetings and group conversations, deaf people may struggle to follow up and ask other questions, even though some of their questions can be quite repetitive, and know that one they want to make sure that we don't miss out anything. Your employer has a duty to make adjustments so you are not put at a disadvantage. Reasonable adjustment could include using the accessibility, using a mini mic, sign language interpreters, hearing loop, and captioning to ensure that we don't miss out anything. The fourth thing is discrimination. Well, as you know, this is quite such a difficult topic to deal with, especially in the workplace. Due to research, the discrimination plays a large part of working lives of deaf people. Many forced to quit their job because of it. It can be dealing with the colleagues and an employer value. You may feel nervous about raising an issue. So, how to handle the discrimination? When the discrimination happens around you, always document it. Make sure you remember the situation, write it down, and along the date and exactly what happened. So you could report to the human resources or to the company. Otherwise, you could try to step up and raise an issue with the employer. This way that you could handle. The fifth is the leadership. Don't be afraid to use your voice. It is someone is that passionate advocate for social justice and equality for the deaf and hard of hearing community. Be a team player and stand out from the crowd. This shows the colleague's employer that the deafness is a part of us and they want to be treated as equality, and you will have to work with the confidence. And that is how you deal with the workplace and the boss. So all the best of luck to all of you who will be dealing in this type of situation in the workplace. But just remember is that you would need the confidence. It's all about the confidence. It's all about stepping up. Rather than showing your weaknesses, it's all about your strength. So thank you. And you have my email address, and I would have welcome to feel free to follow me on Instagram. Thank you.
Qais, thank you very much for that really insightful talk about some of the challenges that are faced. And I can note from the chat room just a slight caution. Of course, some of the rights you're talking about apply in the UK and in some other countries, but not in all countries. But a huge amount of interest in your presentation, and everybody wants it. So thank you very much for that. And I just wondered very briefly if you had, out of what you've put in there, is there one kind of key tip you would give to people?
So the key tip is that it's when it comes to workplace, it can be, the most of the situations that people can feel nervous and quite conscious about the accessibility, or even having asked them for support. And sometimes they can be quite hesitant to ask them questions because they don't want to be repetitive. But it's okay to can ask them for support. It's okay, you can then ask them any questions you like. So it's all about the confidence and showing your strength. When it comes to workplace, make sure you're really keen to work in that workplace.
That's great. Thank you very much. Bowen, back to you.
Thank you very much, Kate. You're getting a lot of great reviews in the chat box. And these are what you have mentioned in your presentation highlights the fact that these skills take time to develop to be able to step up and advocate for yourself. As we all know, Rome wasn't built overnight. So it all starts with going back to the very early days in the school setting to be able to start practicing those skills with a teacher. And as Sue put it very nicely in the chat box, that it also started in your family as well to cultivate the self-esteem from the very beginning, so that by the time the child grows up to be a young adult in your workforce, they feel confident enough to talk about what makes them unique. And the one thing that really stuck out to me personally is that when we're trying to make an impression in the workplace, it's good to really think about the positive aspects of having hearing loss or being a cochlear implant user and how that could contribute to your workplace from a positive aspect. And the one really important thing to really remember is that there should be no need for us to change who we are to conform to the status of the workplace.